Hey, what's going on, everybody? We've got a pregame show for you guys, maybe about 20, 30 minutes. We're going to do our last minute discussion about the games. David is already at Hard Rock Stadium. I will be there in a little bit, but just want to give you guys a little bit of a rundown, a little bit of a pregame stuff that you guys can watch now and also go back into it. David, we have talked a lot about this game. This is how it goes all week long. We're talking about it. Is there anything that's kind of standing out to you, kind of this final notice, these final moments before kickoff that's kind of standing out to you right now?
Yeah, I am curious to see how the offense bounces back, or I guess if they ever start clicking, right? Um, I want to see that. And, I want to see basically, I want to see the offense be more explosive here this game. Miami comes into this game, they haven't allowed, or they haven't generated any plays of longer than 40 yards, whereas Michigan State comes into this game, I think with 3 or 4 of those plays, they've started their first 2 games each with an explosive 75-yard touchdown. So this is probably the third best defense, I would say, that Miami's faced in their 3-game season so far. And it's time to get the offense clicking, time to get some explosiveness going.
Yeah, I think it all starts with the offense today. And, certainly plenty of games to go for the rest of the season. But I just feel like this is such a pivotal moment for the year. You're either going to find out that this team does have some positive qualities about it that makes you feel like they can win games throughout the rest of the year. But if they drop this game, don't look good on either side of the ball, I think that's going to be a lot of issues that's going to be addressed. I think fans are already uncomfortable with these first 2 games, things they've seen, some signs. And Manny Diaz's third year. So I think this is such a pivotal game of the year. And I think one way or another, however this game turns out, I think we'll look back at this game and say it was either a jumping point, a jumping off point, or a turning point of things when things really were bad. So I'm very curious, and I think I'm with you. I think the offense today, that's where it starts. I think the defense.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're expecting from this defense overall, but I think you're expecting more from the offense. And today, I think Miami's going to
Right.
have to score points. I think that the biggest thing with the offense is there's more to be had. They're not. I don't think that they're going to produce at this
Yes.
level moving forward, and particularly with De'Aaron King in the passing game.
Yeah, I expect De'Aaron to be the De'Aaron we saw last season today. I think if we don't see that, that's going to be a sign of maybe just what this season's going to be. But teams are allowed to get better as the season progresses. And, I do think this offense has room for growth. You look back to the 2018 offenses and the 2019 offenses. Those offenses to me just kind of are what they were, or were what they were. And, this offense to me has talent. It's just not coming together yet. I think when you go back and watch the App State game, the potential was there for Miami to score in the 30s. They didn't get that done with multiple drive killing things happening throughout the course of that game. So they just need to start clicking today. And then defensively, to me, I don't know how you feel about this, Chris, but to me, this is a game where we learn kind of the difference that Manny Diaz might make as the play caller compared to last year, right? They made changes to the defensive side of the ball with the coaching staff. I think this Michigan State offense is better than what people expect, honestly. I mean, everyone knows about the running back, but I think the passing game is better than what people think. And I think the potential is there for Michigan State to also score in the 30s. So it's important for Miami's defense to come out and play well as well.
Yeah, and Kenneth Walker, obviously a really good player. When you watch him, you can definitely see why, that he is one of the best backs in the country. I don't think it's just going to be one of Miami's best backs that they'll face this year. I think he's really that upper echelon running back things he's shown already. But I think it's kind of how I felt about the Appalachian State game. Look, I even with as good as the running backs are, I think Peyton Thorne at quarterback is where Miami could have troubles if he gets going. I think he's showed positive signs these first 2 games. Miami's secondary certainly will need to step up. I'm not sure what's going on with Al Blades Jr. I'm not sure if he'll really be in the mix. They might just keep rolling out these three corners to Corey Couch. I think he's been fine, and Tyreek Stevenson had the pass breakups last week. I think everybody's hoping DJ Ivy plays a little bit better than he's shown, and if not, I think they'll integrate Al in there. And I think it's another big test. I think the two wide receivers in particular that these guys have can make plays on
Yes.
Miami's corners and good speed. They're not the biggest guys, but really good speed and guys that can make catches.
Yeah, and to your point with the defensive backs, right? I think it's going to be a tough game for them because Peyton Thorne is at his best, the Michigan State quarterback, when he is rolling out, buying time, particularly to his right, which means the corners have to cover their man for a longer period of time. I also feel like Peyton, their top receiver, Jaden Reed, they were high school teammates. So they have a good connection in terms of scramble drill. And Peyton does a good job of finding Jaden Reed in particular during those situations. So I think Michigan State's going to get their yards. I think Michigan State's going to get into the red zone plenty. And look, this is a cliche, but I think it is one of those games. You got to force the field goals, which, by the way, Michigan State's kicker to me is not, he's kind of the definition of college kicker. And then also, too, we need to see the turnover chain come out today. Because, again, I do think Michigan State's going to move the ball.
Yeah, definitely. David, I can kind of hear the atmosphere. Like I said, I'm not there yet. I'm excited to get to the stadium. But what was it like kind of getting into the stadium parking lots?
Yeah.
What was the tailgating like? What's the atmosphere like right now since you're right there on the state at the stadium?
Yeah, I arrived, I think, at like 8:15, right? And where I park is kind of near that I think it's West 21 area. And it was pretty full with tailgating. Saw some Michigan State people sprinkled in. I would expect a pretty good turnout from the away crowd as well. But, there was eggs and kegs going on this morning, and it looked like a fun scene.
Yeah. Let's go back to the offense. I think the running game for Miami, Cameron Harris. Look, this is him. He's going to get the bulk of the carries with
Yeah.
Chaney out and Knighton still out. And I'm very curious. I know he wants to have. He's one of these guys that seems to really cares about being a good player. Really works hard, and this is his opportunity. And he doesn't have to look over his shoulder. This is him. And I think
Yeah.
ever since he's really been at UM, whether he's been the backup or even the starter, he's always kind of had to look over his shoulder. And right now, this is all him. And certainly, he's got to hit the right holes when they present themselves and kind of get to that next level step, which we have seen at times in his career. It's just that consistency and again, hitting the holes at the right moment and really exploding to that second level.
Tell me this: do you expect him to get at least 20 carries? Because he hasn't had a game yet at UM where he's had that many carries.
Yeah, that's certainly a high number. I think it's 15 plus for sure. I think they do want to get the passing game going, but yeah, I could see him get 20. You saw last week, I think he had 17. I know De'Eric had 19. So I could see De'Eric's number coming down and Cam certainly going up. I think Cody Brown will only get a few carries if they need him. Maybe on like a back-to-back series if it's a 3-and-out on defense and Cam just needs a little break, maybe second quarter type of thing. But I
Right.
just think it's going to be Cam, and that's not really a knock on Cody. I just think he's going to get the
Yeah,
bulk, and like I said, this is his
it should be
opportunity.
Cam.
Sure.
Yeah, I think when you look at Cam's career, quite frankly, like I said, he hasn't had a game where he's had at least 20 carries. He hasn't had many games where he's had at least 15 carries, honestly. But when he does get that many, he averages about 90 yards per game in those games. And to me, Cam Harris is the type of back that needs, for whatever reason, it seems like he needs a long time to get a rhythm, get going in a game. And he does wear down a defense during the course of a game. So he, for the most part, it seems like he gets off to slow starts. But I think we saw last week in the fourth quarter against Appalachian State, he was wearing down that defense. He was very close to popping that long run in the fourth quarter. So I hope, Miami offensive coordinator Rhett Lashley kind of sticks with him, stays patient with him, And I think the coaching staff does believe that this heat is going to wear down Michigan State's defense. And in addition to that, I think they should also believe that Cam Harris has that ability to do that as well at the running back spot.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. I think Michigan State has done everything they can do to prepare for the heat. Talking to one of their guys that cover the team earlier this week, if you guys haven't seen the pregame stuff or preview stuff, but turned up the heat and inside, and they did everything they could to kind of replicate the heat. But it's different. It's just different game and different on game day. I was, even talking to high school coaches, guys get so amped for that season opener that they deal with cramps, even down here, even though they're used to the heat. So I think as much preparation as you can do, and we'll see if it plays a factor. And certainly it's going to be a warm day the way it's been all week. Hey, David, we got a lot of good people on the chat right now. Shouted out these guys earlier, Sean, Big Man, Nephew, and Tay. So Nick just dropped in, and this is a good question. He said, do we know who's out for this game? And so Nick, just let people know, an hour before kickoff is typically when Miami sends out an unavailability report. They don't always do that. They don't have to do that. They did it with suspensions in the opener. As far as who's out this game, I don't think there's any big surprises.
Anything new?
Anything new? I know we saw Redding in a red jersey. It's still kind of the same guys. We've not talked about it all week, but Larry Hodges, third string tight end, he served his 2-game suspension, so I assume he's ready, but I don't know, and I obviously not a big factor. But other than that, I don't see anything. I think maybe in-out type thing. I'd be surprised if Leonard Taylor doesn't play today. I know that he hasn't played the first 2 games. I'd be surprised if he doesn't play today.
Let me ask you this, because I think in terms of changes to the lineup, we might see something different on the right side of the offensive line, right? Garen Justice hinted at that. Let me ask you this. Who do you think that they will start at right tackle, right guard? And then who would you like to see there?
Yeah, I was going to ask you the same thing and we did talk about it this week, but I think they're going to go Jared at right tackle. I think they'll go Justice at right guard. I think it's because typically when they start to criticize a guy the way you criticize Navon for his play and opens it up, it just feels like that's what they do, and then they just get the next guy in there. So that's my guess. You're gonna be there, like I said, you're obviously there, but you'll see that in pregame warm-ups. Definitely, everybody check out the live updates that we have for updates on actual warm-ups and how guys are lining up. But that's what I would see. I understand Navon's not played well. I still believe that he'll be a good, productive player. I guess I'm not ready to jump off yet on that, but certainly needs to play better. So I would still keep him in there, and I would keep him at guard, and I would go with Jared at right tackle. I don't understand why Jared's not been in there, and even when we talk to coach to get answers, and he just kind of basically, it's pretty obvious they just believe the other guys are better. So
right.
So yeah, your thoughts on that right side of the line, and Matt, what's going on? I always appreciate you jumping in as well. It's good seeing you here. Go ahead.
I agree with what you expect. I think Jared and Justice will be the right tackle, right guard today. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if we did see DJ Scaife, quite frankly, start at right tackle. I wouldn't be shocked. It does seem like Garen is a big fan of his. Now, there's no excusing the way he played against Alabama, but I do think Garen might chalk that up to, well, that was Alabama. We're not going to see another front like that. In terms of the Navon Donaldson thing, I think he played really bad against App State, and I'm with you. I think you and I are probably the biggest Navon Donaldson fans relative to everyone else out there. But you can't deny the poor play at some point. And to me, it just seems like, and look, he's improved his conditioning, no doubt. But it does seem like the mental errors might be a result of being physically tired at times. And, Miami wants to play fast. They want to go at tempo. And so I worry about that a little bit with Navon. But there's also no doubt, when Navon's at his best, he is their most impactful run blocker. But at the same time, if you're out there allowing tackles for loss like he was against App State, you just can't be out there. So I do expect Justice and Jared on the right side today. I do like that. It's frustrating that Garen Justice hasn't figured out the lineup yet necessarily, but I do like that at least he's willing to tinker with it so much to try and get it fixed.
Yeah, and I don't think he's wrong in that sense. It's not like we're all sitting here saying, "Oh, the line's played great. Why would you change it up?" So
Right.
so he is reacting. You can question if why is he putting guys in the essentially wrong spots, or why is there not in-game adjustments being made? And I've talked about this. I don't understand why they feel like they struggle all game, and then afterwards is when they make the change. Now I know they took out DJ Scaife in the opener. But sometimes they kind of just write a guy out and then make a change. So we'll see how that goes. David, wide receiver. We talk a lot about De'Aaron King, passing game. What is going on at wide receiver? I know that I know Rhett Latchley's strategy is they don't go into games to target certain guys and they kind of let the game come to them essentially. I think they've got to
Right.
find. I think they need to switch that philosophy. I think they need to go into games wanting to get Mike Harley involved, wanting to get Will Mallory involved more than they have. And certainly Will and Mike had their drops or didn't come up with plays last game. But I think you got to get those guys involved. You don't want to keep going into
Absolutely.
the season because those are the guys you win with. And wide receiver play in particular, what are you seeing? And kind of do we need to see more or do you expect more? Or is this kind of what it is?
I think I think they can definitely play better. I think they will play better. The drops from those two guys you mentioned were frustrating because they got to be the leaders of that phase of the offense, right? When I look at this matchup for the wide receivers, I think it's a chance for them to get going because, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree with this, Chris, but Michigan State's DBs, like, I'm not here saying they're like super slow, but they definitely look like they lack some speed. And so I think some opportunities for maybe some deep shots, maybe the opportunity to create separation on crossers, which creates yards after the catch. Honestly, to me, that's been the biggest disappointment with this group. They're not picking up any yards after catch this year. I think as a team, it's like an average of 1.8 yards after catch per reception. Last year, I think they were at like 5 for the season. So it's a small sample size this year, of course, but they need to do a better job of making that first tackler miss, whatever that means, whether it's turning with the ball after you catch it, or being able to make guys miss in space in the short game. They just got to make plays, man. I mean, it's really that simple. And if they do, they're going to score in the 30s today. And I think we'll feel a lot better about this offense and it clicking moving forward.
I think there's times that De'Aaron King has put in some situations with a lot of drop back passing. I would like to personally see a little bit more rollouts, him on the move, and I know that makes him, opens him up. He's vulnerable to get hit, but I think he's good enough to understand when to release the ball, and I think it's kind of what you're saying. I think you'd like to see some drag routes across the field, left to right, get De'Aaron rolling to his right, where he can kind of hit different levels of the receiver. I think a little bit movement of like that would help because I think Miami does have some speed. And I do think that they're going to go deep on these guys. I think Michigan State, especially in that first game, that they just kind of gave up some stuff over the top, and I think they can be beat.
Yeah.
And I do think Miami, even if they haven't shown that they've really been hitting on all their deep passes, and certainly they need to be better there. But I think the ability's there with all three guys that they've been really rotating in with Mike, Keyshawn and Charleston. They've been it's mainly just those three guys getting majority of the reps and the snaps. And all three of those guys can do the similar things with getting downfield. And like I said, I'd be surprised if it continues to struggle. But at some point, and this is what we do, we have to reverse our thinking. If it's, just because you think one thing, if your eyes are telling you another thing with results, then you start to, adjust things. And just like coaches, they might go into things thinking it might be one way, but they might have to make adjustments based on the actual results of what's going on. So it'll be interesting to see the receivers. They've got to help them out. And certainly the guy's got to make plays, like you said, the yards after the catch. David, I know that we heard Manny Diaz and Coach Lashley talk a lot about red zone offense. And, 2 touchdowns and 8 trips this season. Obviously, you're not expecting a 25% rate the rest of the year.
Right.
One of the things I found interesting with that, because I'm always curious, like, where does it stack from years past? Miami has not finished in the top 70 nationally. They've only done it once in the last 9 years. That's crazy to me. So
Yeah.
so if you start thinking like, well, it's not that bad, it's similar to before, but like before has not been very good. It's kind of interesting that
Right.
doesn't matter the quarterback or the coordinator. It's been an issue for Miami getting red zone touchdowns for years now. So I find that interesting. One thing about that though, I don't know if they've got the personnel because I talk about this all the time. They don't have a big receiver. I like the big targets down there. Will Mallory's got to be big in the red zone in particular, but I think it is a little bit difficult for the smaller guys to kind of get open inside the red zone, and I think they need a
Yeah.
bigger target. And I don't know if that's maybe a Mike Redding who's a little bit bigger than these guys, but or even a D Wiggins a little bit better size, but those guys aren't known necessarily for being these 6'3", 220s or 215s. So red zone offense needs to improve for sure. Is there something in particular that you've
To
noticed
me,
with red zone?
well, to me, honestly, red zone efficiency, and I agree, like the bigger receivers would certainly help in the passing game. To me, though, that's where like the red zone inefficiency in terms of touchdowns, to me, that boils down to run blocking. And that's where we see that kind of manifest in a bad way with this offense, right? They're just not getting that push up front. And when you get inside the 20, the teams that do the best job of getting that push can punch the ball into the end zone. And Miami's just not doing that right now. So I think they're searching for answers on the offensive line in terms of run blocking. Let's hope they find it today and they can get that push in the red zone. I also think, too, Chris, I don't know if you agree with this, but De'Aaron King as a scrambler, to me, is a weapon in the red zone. Making defenses have to account for that. So those are the two areas I would look for improvement in red zone efficiency with touchdowns rather than field goals, right?
And I was paying close attention to the game last night between Louisville and UCF inside the red zone, what was going on with both teams. Actually went out to a high school game and it was pouring rain, so I wasn't able to do that. So I was able to catch the UCF Louisville game. And with Cunningham and his running ability, obviously different than Derek, but he did good inside the red zone. And then also, I thought with what UCF did down late in the game, running the ball, inside the 50 in that last possession before the turnover, but just essentially handing the ball off and getting these huge chunk plays
Right.
on their side of the, going in and obviously inside the red zone. So I think it's a combination. I don't think, like you said, or when I was talking about, if you don't have the bigger receivers, then play to your strengths. Either it's a tight end seam route up the middle with Will. They like that play, kind of back of the end zone stuff in between the hashes. They like that. Give the ball to Cam. If you got to run it 5 times or
Yeah.
De'Aaron, whatever it might be, you've got to play to your strengths, particularly inside the red zone. You can't really mess around with plays because all of a sudden you get a play that doesn't work or a negative play. You're kind of fighting it, and it's a lot easier for defenses to hold because they can kind of, they're not going to go get beat for 40 yards, so they can kind of shorten the field. And I think that happens at times too. And penalties certainly is key, and the procedure stuff is that always bothers coaches and
Yeah.
everybody. So you got to avoid those too.
Anecdotally, and I think the numbers do back this up as well, it seems like Miami this year, and it's a small sample size again, but it seems like they've had a little more success running to the edges rather than the inside runs. Is that an area you feel like they can get a little more success running the ball moving forward?
Maybe, I don't know about today, kind of what, Michigan State, even if they've been a little susceptible, I think their front seven is solid enough. But I just think,
Yeah.
I think for Miami with the running game, I think it's got to be a combination of both. I think even with Cam, I don't think he excels necessarily always one way or the other. I think he kind of, I think it's kind of, he can get success inside or out. And I think he can find, where he's not successful doing both because I think he's just got kind of a back that kind of the inconsistency with the holes in the offensive line. I think for Miami with their offensive line, they need to establish, look, we're a college team. This is what we do. If we're going to run left on big time runs, you can't stop it, then we're going to run left or run right. Or they need to find exactly what they do the best and just write it out. Sometimes I think teams kind of go away from their strengths a little too much and to try to be a little too complete. So I think I think the big thing is finding out exactly what they do with the run game and whether that happens today and almost like a bread and butter type of play, a play that that can get you 4 to 8, 9 yards in a run, essentially. So we'll see. And I think you're looking for guys. Again, this offensive line has experience, but they need to play better, and certainly a lot of guys do today. And I think that's the big thing that you're looking forward to today is both sides of the ball. Guys got to play better. Guys that are returning, it's time for them to step up. And I'm honestly expecting that to happen.
Let's talk about the other side, Kenneth Walker. We've touched on him a little bit, but how much does he concern you with his ability and also with what Miami has going on at linebacker, right? Because they're now turning to their backup weak side linebacker in Wayne Steed. I would expect Michigan State to go at that, right? Test that, see how that goes with Wayne Steed stepping in. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Well, the key for Miami, the key for Michigan State really is if the runs are only getting 3, 4, 5 yards, you can't let up. Michigan State's going to have to keep giving the ball to Walker because he really does have that potential for 20, 30, 40-yard runs at any point. And I think Miami too. You can't let up. Even if you're stopping the run at times during the game, certainly Miami's not good enough defensively against the run to just automatically assume that will happen all game long. And I think the consistency of just always being locked in. And I think that if not, I think it could be trouble. We've seen running backs have huge days against Miami recently. North Carolina wasn't that long ago, where those guys piled up yards.
Right.
And you're talking about ability. I think you see it the same way I do, and that Walker's got the ability like those guys that he's very good and he can kind of do different things. And that being said, I know what the defense that they faced the first couple of weeks with the Spartans, but I just think he's got ability. I think he's going to be one of these guys that has a big year in the Big Ten. I think he's going to be a guy even today that could get loose a little bit, and we'll see what happens. But certainly the linebacker situation, we could do this all year long probably with the linebackers because they're always going to be a focal point.
Let's not.
Yeah, hopefully they get some things figured out. And I remember asking Tyreek, just last week about the importance of cornerbacks against stopping the run. So. It's all, and that's
a big key.
That's what's going to happen. The safety's got to come down. It's just the reality of it with the stop and the run situation Miami's facing right now.
Yeah, to me, Walker clearly in the first 2 games. Now he's fine going up the middle too, but he clearly is at his best when he's on the edges and making those cornerbacks miss the first tackle opportunity. Against Northwestern, right? He went off for 200 plus yards. I think he ran for, I forget the exact number, but all 4 of his touchdowns went off to the left side, the left edge in particular. And I think he broke 4 tackles on those runs. So, and when you referenced the North Carolina game, one of the issues there was the missed tackles, specifically the missed tackles by the cornerbacks on the edge there, because North Carolina likes that stretch zone run game. Similar looks that we'll see from Michigan State today. And I agree, like Kenneth Walker is an NFL running back all day long. So to me, it's about kind of the swarm. We need to see that swarm from the back 7 when it comes to tackling them, getting them on the ground. And then the defensive line, you got to set the edges, of course. So Jafari Harvey, Chance Williams, Zach McLeod, DeAndre Johnson. I think the defensive line played a really good game against App State. It needs to be a similar type of performance from that group in terms of defending the run this week against Michigan.
And in particular, you mentioned going off left side. I think Kenneth Walker has been very good at the backside runs, setting that up, whether it's on counter plays by design or just him seeing it. He reversed field against Youngstown State, had a great run there, but just that backside, and I think that's where Miami, when you talk about linebackers needing to play at above average level, it's always being locked in on that backside because it's easy for linebackers instinctively to run to the front side, to be like, okay, the running back's going to the right, I need to cover that area, get to my hole, but Walker has the ability to cut back and get upfield in a hurry, and I think there's got to be a little bit of a patience, and I think that's what also the athleticism. If you're not athletic enough to kind of get to that outside, make up for that, I think you can get exposed, and that'll be certainly a big thing today, and not just the runs, but just that backside stuff, and so it'll be interesting. David, I want to wrap this up a little bit. Appreciate everybody for jumping on here. Like I said, I need to get to the stadium. I'm excited to get there. Very curious, very interested to see how this thing plays out because, like I said from the beginning, this feels like a very pivotal game either way. They're either going to
Yeah.
do well and kind of use this as a launching point, or if they struggle,
Yep.
take that loss, I think it's going to expose even more question marks than people already have. And I think we both see it. Michigan State's good enough to win this game. Miami's certainly good enough as well. But kind of final thoughts on this before we wrap up the pregame show.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game, quite frankly. So buckle in if you're a Miami fan. I think it'll be decided in the fourth quarter. And the hope, honestly, that the weather wears them down, that Miami can get their tempo going in the fourth, through the first three quarters, and that wears Michigan State down in the fourth quarter. I think a positive is, generally speaking, since last season, Miami's been a pretty good fourth quarter team. Now they've gotten off to slow starts, but they've finished games pretty well in those close contests with De'Aaron King at quarterback, right? So I think it's going to be, like you said, it is going to be a telling game in terms of what to expect the rest of the season. And I hope to see the offense score some points today, get going, score touchdowns instead of field goals.
And I think even though you've wanted to see better play from Miami, they have played better at home in recent games.
Yeah.
I'm going to mess up the stats, but they've either won 6 of their last 7 or 7 of the last 8. I can't remember if I updated that. But they've done good at home, and I think they've done good at home against non-conference teams as well, for the most part in recent years. So we will see. Looking forward to it. Stadium looks great. I appreciate everybody for jumping on here, asking some questions. You can always watch it back, and we will do this again. But definitely stay tuned. We'll have live updates throughout the game on the website. Instant reaction stuff. I'll do that again today. But David, appreciate for jumping on here, and I'll see you soon.
Enjoy the game.
See you guys.